Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Louise Huber begins now.
Good evening, everyone. First tonight, Tasmanian school children and staff are being told not to return to campus until Thursday if they've recently returned from Victoria. The latest rules come as Tasmania locks out all of New South Wales, which has left small businesses uncertain of their futures.
In the tiny tourist town of Richmond, business is bustling. For many small operators, weekend trade is at pre-COVID numbers, but not all is sweet.
It's been a rocky road, that's for sure, but we've been very lucky and we feel very privileged to have been able to keep our doors open and be supported by locals as much as possible.
The popular region relies heavily on visitors from the mainland, and last night's border closure to New South Wales has left a sour taste for many businesses.
It will have a big impact, but just how big it will be and how long it's going to go on for just makes, looking ahead, a little bit tricky.
It takes a number of months for confidence to return to the market. A snap lockdown of 5 days isn't really 5 days. It's really a number of months before it heads back to where it was.
Retail has been blooming at the Tasmanian Lavender Shop as more Tasmanians choose to support local.
We've had ladies in from Ulverston this morning, like about 10 of those that have been down for a line dancing competition, out at Claremont. They were just happy as, and they've never seen a lavender shop like this before.
But accommodation providers have been left in limbo.
We're seeing both a lag in terms of people postponing holidays and deferring their bookings, and also cancellations, just simply because it's uncertain time to travel. Obviously, any confidence sap has a major impact on the regions.
Meanwhile, Tasmanian students and staff returning from Victoria must not attend school until July 22. Outbreaks on the mainland prompting a reminder from the state government for all Tasmanians to use the Check-in Tas app, a small step to help protect our state from the virus. Ainsley Kosh, 7 Tasmania News.
Turning to the day's other news now, and a 19-year-old man remains in a critical condition after crashing his motorcycle into a guardrail along the Tasman Highway at Rocky Hills yesterday afternoon. Police say the man was one of 4 riders returning to Hobart when he crashed while turning a corner. He was thrown from his motorcycle over the guardrail, sustaining serious injuries. Paramedics and a doctor treated the man on scene before he was flown by helicopter to the Royal for emergency surgery. Anyone who may have witnessed the crash is urged to contact police. The Huon Valley Midwinter Festival has been hailed a success, with crowds gathering to watch the Burning Man last night, marking the end of the event.
Well, Nico on my shows, he was actually quite sad. He was kind of, why they're burning my friend? So he didn't actually like it, but I think the other 2 were enjoying it.
It's been many years, there's been Burning Man down here in the valley, and the most important part of it has been engaging the audience in the wassail ceremony through the crowd, and then people being part of the burning.
1,200 festival goers packed the Willie Smith apple sheds over the 2 nights. In a Tasmanian first, athletes have strapped themselves in for a gruelling 100-mile run through the outskirts of Launceston. Organisers of the Trail Festival say the hill climb is comparable with Mount Everest.
Bounding through the bush in a brutal show of endurance, a 100-mile race, 160 kilometres, most would define as punishment, but these cross-country junkies consider it pleasure.
How's it going, mate? You're good?
Good. Cruising.
Before now, Tasmania has never hosted an event of this size and nature, climbing up hills and snaking through Trevelyan's vast trails, each loop even more gruelling than the last.
You just have under 8,000 metres of elevation climbing, so you think Everest is 9,000? We're just under that.
12 brave souls lined up for the challenge at dawn yesterday. The winner crossed the finish line this morning, 24 hours and 54 minutes later.
And he was still chipper, smiling, laughing. I don't know how I would have just been a mess.
Hobart's Ben Hurst was one of them, but 115 k's in was forced to pull out.
I think it's up there with one of the hardest, I think the hilliest courses I've been on.
The two-day Tassie Trail Festival also featured comparatively smaller events, a 100, 45, 23 and 12-kilometre race.
We had about 220 to 230 competitors.
Organisers are already thinking about next year and beyond as the popularity of trail running continues to grow.
And, you know, Tasmania has some of the best trails in Australia.
Garth Burley, 7 Tasmania News.
Labor says the government needs to end the silence on the state's housing crisis. It wants to know the progress of commitments in the 100-day plan, which was launched during the state election campaign, saying too many people are still feeling the pinch over winter.
We've got over 4,000 Tasmanians who are waiting on the housing waiting list, and that's just simply not good enough. There's a new Minister for Housing, and to date we haven't heard a lot from him.
The government says a number of initiatives have begun since returning to power. The Tasmanian government says any decision on hosting Victorian AFL teams in the state will be based on public health advice. North Melbourne are due to host top 4 contenders Geelong at Blunston Arena on Saturday, July 31. The government also keeping the door open for Hawthorn, who are due to face Brisbane at the MCG next weekend.
We remain open to hosting further games here, but we will make any decision in the light of the latest and most relevant public health advice, as we have in the past.
Victoria is at this stage due to exit lockdown early this week. Tonight marks 50 years since a gas explosion flattened buildings, flung cars across the road and turned a parking meter into a projectile, narrowly missing diners at a popular restaurant in Launceston. And as you're about to hear, only good fortune stopped the freak event from turning deadly.
Charles Street, 1971. Launceston looks like a war zone.
Council's discount store, an electrical store, some flats that are on top of these two premises have been completely demolished.
Gas trapped in a basement exploded, bursting brick buildings and causing shockwaves across town.
No one was actually killed, which is quite incredible, and it's a Saturday night.
Noel's father-in-law was running the nearby Canton restaurant when a parking meter flew over diners' heads like a missile.
The meter flew through the kitchen, through there, and ended up on this far wall at the back here.
Millimetres from being fatal.
One of the waitresses working at the time, she actually put her head out the door there just to see what was going on. An explosion went off and the meter head from across the road went through, brushed the side of her head.
The explosion here in Charles Street early this evening took people by surprise, especially two waitresses in the saloon bar at the Hotel Tasmania.
Reporter Mike Dunphy was at the coalface.
Well, I thought it sounded like a bomb falling, and I thought it was an earthquake.
It was, as I said, unusual for us to be called out to do film at night after the news had gone to air.
The gentleman you're seeing there at the moment is actually standing on the top of a car which I would say is a Morris 1100, but at the moment it would be no more than about 1.5 feet high. It is completely smashed to the ground.
Looking at the film after 50 years, it did surprise me that we had the access we did.
Is there any danger that perhaps there's gas in some of the other buildings here? Well, see, I think you can smell gas in the air. Can you detect it? Slightly, yes. Well,
I don't think that would happen today. I don't think anyone from press would be allowed to get so close to a massive gas explosion like there was that night.
The legacy of that freak occurrence is still evident today. Remarkably, the buildings either side of the explosion were largely untouched, but the gaping hole has since been filled by a distinctively different facade. As one of Tasmania's longest-running restaurants, the Canton acknowledges its dalliance with disaster. Some of its regulars from the time still dine at the culinary institution.
And you find that when I'm talking to people, there's a lot of older people come forward with their views of what they had on that night.
To see the work at the end of the day, I was very happy with it, and it was good.
Tom Johnson, 7 Tasmania News.
Volunteers with two of our state's dog organisations were given a lesson in canine first aid this morning. Local vet Dr Mark Hines and his handy helper Taco going through the basics. Those in attendance learning a number of techniques from bandaging through to muzzling a dangerous dog.
To help out their animals in tricky situations that could be critical. So what can an owner do if they're 3 hours away from their local vets?
The main aim at the end of the day is that they feel comfortable if an emergency does happen, that they have a little bit of knowledge.
A second workshop will be held in Launceston later this year. The owner of Richmond's Poseum has won her lengthy battle to keep signage outside the business, despite a 2-year stoush with Clarence City Council causing quite the stir. The sign was removed in 2019 after the owner failed to obtain a planning permit at the Bridge Street site. But last week, Council approved the application for the retrospective sign.
I was prepared to take it to court. I was prepared to take it to the appeal tribunal. Very happy that I don't have to do this anymore.
The one-of-a-kind Poseum has been operating since 2018. Starting with the NPL, Glenorchy has moved within a point of Devonport at the top of the ladder after thumping Kingborough 4-1. South Hobart also moved back into title contention, coming from behind in the second half to overcome Launceston City.
With the Riverside Devonport match postponed, the Knights had the chance to put some pressure on the ladder leaders, Glenorchy opening their account early on in bizarre fashion. They made it 2 after 35 minutes through Nicholas Naden. The game all but sealed just after half-time via this classy finish. Kingborough did pull one back through Adam McEwen, but hopes of a comeback were dashed when the Knights scored a fourth. A big win in more ways than one. South Hobart also had the chance to kick-start their title chances. Launceston City, however, had other ideas, going ahead in the 17th minute. South eventually levelled after an hour through Casper Hallam. He'd give them the lead soon after, finishing off some nice play down the wing in style. Two more goals, including a third from Hallam, capping off a second-half blitz, also ending City's 3-game winning streak. And in the Eastern Shore Derby, Clarence were in front early against Olympia. However, it lasted 10 minutes, Warriors striker Kyle Vincent levelling. 1-1 lasted just 3 minutes, Matt Pace capitalising on a sleepy Warrior defence. The win sealed with 12 minutes to go, with Clarence rising to 5th. John Hunt, 7 Tasmania News.
Good evening. It was a mostly sunny day across much of the state today. Both Launceston and Hobart reached 15 degrees, the state's top temperature. 14 in Devonport and Burnie had a top of 13. King Island and Friendly Beaches had a high of 14, 13 degrees for most other places across the state, and Lyowini reached just 5 degrees. On the close-up, cloud covering mainly the west and parts of the south. Further out, patchy mid-level cloud extends over southwestern WA and low-level cloud over western New South Wales. Tomorrow's chart shows a high sitting over central Australia and extending over all of the country except for Tasmania and southern Victoria. West to northwesterly winds tomorrow 10 to 20 knots, reaching 30 knots in the northwest. Swells 3 to 4 metres in the west and south, up to 5 metres in the southwest. A strong wind warning for the far northwest coast from Sandy Cape to Stanley. And a minor flood warning is current for the Meander River. Turning to tomorrow's forecast now, Hobart 13 and cloudy and 12 degrees in Dover and Ooze also cloudy. In the north, a possible shower and 13 in Launceston, Devonport showers increasing and 11 degrees and a shower or 2 in Scottsdale. Showers and 13 degrees for Burnie, Strawn and Stanley tomorrow. St Helens and Swansea 14 degrees expected and 12 and cloudy for Ross. Looking ahead now on Tuesday, showers across the state, thunderstorms about the west and Bass Strait Islands, possible hail in the west too. Wednesday, showers about the west, central parts and south, mainly fine elsewhere, snow above 600 metres. And on Thursday, more showers in the west and far south, with light showers developing in the north, fine elsewhere. Around the country now, Adelaide 15 and a shower or 2, Melbourne also 15 degrees, 21 in Brisbane, Darwin 33 and mostly sunny, and Sydney 16 and partly cloudy. And it's currently 11 degrees in Hobart, partly cloudy, Launceston 8 and partly cloudy, and Devonport 10. And it's looking like another damp week ahead, Lou.
That's winter for you. Thanks for that, Letitia. That's all your news for this Sunday evening. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a lovely evening. Good night.